All right, who's too low?
Too low. No disrespect to the number one team on Pete Prisco's power rankings. I'm not saying this should replace the number one team, but the Minnesota Vikings are too low. This is a complete football team. This has been a masterclass on both sides of the ball at the coordinator spots, the head coach.
So number 4. You think
number
they should
4.
be higher?
I think they should skip the Lions.
Okay.
Because you know what the Vikings
Find
have?
out this week.
A defense.
They do.
And this is kind of giving you a tip as to where I'm going to go with my pick this week. But the Minnesota Vikings are a house. And we've questioned them every single week on both sides of the ball. B-Flow and that defense. We said that I thought they couldn't stop the Green Bay run game. They dominated Green Bay. And granted, there were a lot of injuries for the Green Bay Packers. And, I'll let you whine about that one a little bit later. But this Minnesota Vikings team is unbelievable. We've waited for the shoe to drop all season for Sam Darnold, and what has he done? He's only gotten better. And I think about another guy in that building by the name of Josh McCown, who should be on some lists for head coaching jobs, in my opinion. Culture guy, brilliant, obviously gotten the most out of Sam Darnold. But this team presents so many issues to opposing teams, whether it's matchup nightmares on the offensive side of the ball, or getting your offensive line to be on their P's and Q's, play in, play out. The defense frustrates people. The offense has mismatches across the entire board. The quarterback has been fantastic and has played his way into the large conversation about MVP, in my opinion. Sam Darnold should be at least mentioned on some of these graphics for MVP. This is what a championship football team looks like. And
do you worry about their offensive line at all? Because it's not dominant like some of the other ones.
It's not dominant, but you've got immediate winners across the board for the Minnesota Vikings at the skill positions. You've got a running back who's experienced. He's seen it all, run and pass.
Yeah.
And now you've got a quarterback who is a vet at this point, and he's savvy. They have great game plans. Kevin O'Connell doesn't get nearly the credit as he should. He should probably be in I think Andy Reid should win it, but he should be in the top of the list there with Andy Reid for Coach of the Year.
I think O'Connell will win it.
He'll probably win it because there's voter fatigue on Andy Reid.
Well, not just that. This was a team that your quarterback is Sam Darnold, and you might end up with the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Sam Darnold was the number 2 pick, bro.
But he's Sam Darnold.
People didn't understand how to open that fruit up and get the juices. And Josh McCown, Kevin O'Connell, they have, and they've coupled it with that defense. I think that the Minnesota Vikings should be 1 spot, maybe 2 spots higher, with the potential of, if I wasn't such a Kansas City Chiefs homer, I would say that maybe this is the best team in football.
I mean, it's hard to argue right now with what they just did to the Packers, a team that's in the top 10. It's hard to argue with that, and they look as good as anyone else does right now. And I think the biggest thing with them, they might be the healthiest team in the league. It's just Christian Darrisaw. You're down 1 starter who's even like a little banged up. Their injury reports are clean as can be.
And we thought that was going to fold their entire operation midway through the year.
Yeah.
Like, Darrisaw's the best guy outside.
And that's a big injury. I'm not going to.
But they had the lull there, like with the Jacksonville barely beat that team. Went to Tennessee, probably shouldn't have won that game. There was a lull there.
And we said Sam Darnold has turned into a pumpkin, and then he didn't.
Then he turned back.
And then they made pumpkin pie out of it.
Yep, he's been great. And
I don't even like pumpkin pie.
I don't either.
But I love that.
I don't mind pumpkin pie. I'll eat pumpkin pie.
Pumpkins are for carving.
Right next to the beef Wellington.
Pumpkins are for
pumpkin pie is in no way on par with you.
Did you have beef Wellington? Did you have beef Wellington on Christmas?
I did not.
No.
I did have lasagna, though. I almost sent you a pic. I had lasagna. Yeah.
You did?
That's good.
It was actually very good. All right, my team is ranked too low. San Francisco 49ers. We haven't touched on them yet at 23.
Detroit touched on them last night.
Yeah, right. But they're just – this is a team that I know they're beaten down and – injuries have cost them their season. And like right now, I'm not like arguing too hard for them to be too much higher. It's like whatever. It doesn't even matter. They're not making the playoffs. None of the teams ahead of them are making the playoffs. But it's more to say that they are very close to getting back into it. If they just can stay healthy next year, I don't see any reason that they don't bounce back to a team that can compete in the NFC. And even right now, it's like they were in almost every game this year, except those 2 games where they played Brandon Allen. Purdy was hurt, and then Purdy comes back, and it's a snowstorm in Buffalo. Like, those are the only 2 games they weren't in till the end all season long. So it's a competitive team down at 23 behind teams like the Panthers and Cowboys at this point.
The Bears are 24. They beat them by 40, bro.
Yeah. I just think that this still it's a team that if they were 9-7 right now, no one would bat an eye. There's a bunch of games that they just coughed up, especially early on in the season. The Rams game, the Cardinals game.
I thought they would win last night. I was wrong about that, but because of just some pride and everything else, the veterans being around. You say they'll be back next year. What do you do with Purdy?
Pay him.
I just let it ride, man. As my opinion, I think if he wants anything more than. I mean, if he wants $50+ million, I'm not paying. I just would not pay that.
Give him the Baker deal.
He wouldn't take that though.
What about? Okay.
He wouldn't.
I don't know
how many tractors you can buy with the Baker deal.
We just talked about the.
We just talked
about the Vikings, and so what do you do? It's almost like, what are you going to do with Darnold?
Okay, Darnold is a really bright guy. I think that he is going to be willing to take less to be in the best building. A little less. A little bit less, but less. I mean, it's all relative over $35 million in my opinion.
Does he get the Baker deal? Like a little, the cost of living increase on the Baker deal. Would he take that? Does he get what Baker's 33 a year? So does he take 37 a year?
I think 37 would be a good number where Sam Darnold would say.
And here's the other flip of that. Okay. Ready? I've been saying this all along. This is something that I think needs to happen. If you pay him that and keep him, then you trade JJ McCarthy.
Yeah. We figured out the Raiders.
Yeah.
And I think that would make a ton of sense, is to get assets back because they don't have a lot. And make that deal. And Tom Brady, get a Michigan man in there. And
people don't realize how much losing or winning can affect your life outside of the building and your quality of life as just a human being. And for Sam Darnold, who's been to hell and back in the National Football League, he has died and gone to football heaven in Minnesota. You take a look at those lists where players do exit polls on which buildings were the best, which cafeteria, training room. There's a reason they're the healthiest team. There's a reason that they're winning outside of obviously the X's and O's and the leaders in that building and the coaching staff. People enjoy themselves in the Minnesota Vikings.
Have you ever been to their facility?
It is fantastic.
It's the best facility. That and that. I mean, the Cowboys have a great one, but that facility is fantastic.
Yep.
It's like it's in a world of its own. It's great.
And that part of the country is fantastic. Yeah, I mean,
everybody's nice as can be.
Sam Darnold is going to take the deal that is offered, in my opinion, because he understands that winning cures everything.
Okay, if that's the case,
and he's still young, he's gonna get another deal, dude.
He's only 27.
He's got minority ownership money.
If that's the case, you can't keep JJ McCarthy then?
Well, then Daniel Jones is your backup next year.
I mean, the thing is, McCarthy's value doesn't depreciate, right? So if you keep him one more year, it almost like his value increases in that if he looks good in preseason and he's the backup, then it's like, okay, he's looked good for 2 straight preseasons. Or like, you're getting probably like 2 or 3 first back for him.
I don't really put much stock in the preseason, how they look.
Yeah, but like NFL teams, they're again at the quarterback position, their evaluation doesn't degrade over time. But if someone's saying a backup at a different position would.
But if you're the Raiders and you need to go from they're 6 or whatever to go get to 2, you're probably going to give up a lot more than you would to go get JJ McCarthy.
Yep.
So it makes sense.
We're in agreement there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if you're the Vikings, I think there's no way you let Sam Darnold leave after this year, unless.
Did you see the way they showered that guy with water bottles in the locker room? That's a leader. That's a quarterback. That's a team that bought in way before we did.
What if he goes 9-25 for 103 yards and 3 picks against the Lions, and then goes into the postseason and does the same thing? Then what do you do?
Well, then
it won't happen. But what if it did?
Lamar Jackson then?
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, you
Kirk Cousins.
What is it? What's the tag they put on Lamar? The exchange tag or whatever?
That's your neck of the woods, dude. I'm so bad with upstairs shit.
If I played Lamar Jackson and Kirk Cousins and those guys, every single time I come in the line of scrimmage, they go, playoff game, guys, it's playoff.
It's funny, that Lamar Jackson conversation. I got to meet Gary Vaynerchuk a while back. Gary V, who's like fantastic. He's awesome. One of the biggest Jets fans, if not the biggest Jets fan. And I remember when the quarterback conversation was up there in New York, I was like, you guys should get Rodgers. You guys should get Rodgers. He was like, I do not want Aaron Rodgers. I want Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
And now he looks like he would have been a smart investor there.
That would
Shout out to Gary
Vee. Smarter investment than what they did.